Well, here we are once again with Ufotable adopting a type Moonwork. If it sells, why stop doing it, right? I mean, have you seen how all related the series is old? From the atrocious older version made by Dean to its prequel Fate Zero to its lowly fun service spin-off Fate Kaleid, this franchise is a gold mine. And you need to be aware of what exactly you're getting yourself into in case you don't already know. The Fate franchise is affiliated with the most famous porn game of all times and has a ridiculous amount of fans who defend it to the death. For example, if someone hears what I just said, he will go apeshit and explain in a wall of text how it's not a porn game, it's a visual novel, the ultimate masterpiece of storytelling, with exceptional writing, amazing characters, complicating terminology and intellectual battles. How many books have these people read that are not shitty visual novels, or how many games have they played that are not erotic visual novels? 95% chance? The answer is 0. As it happens with all fandoms, they are filled with fanatics who are inflating whatever is going on while being in denial. It has sex scenes, it has fan service, it has harem. It's a porn game, you can stop trying to call it otherwise. It tries to be more, but eventually succeeds only to becoming a badly written battle shonen with fancy terminology. If you keep your expectations low, you will enjoy it as a rule of cool type of show, filled with lots of flashy battles, extremely polished visuals, and poser characters you want to cosplay as or have as your waifu. It's a very fun show if you see it just as a spectacle. The problem surfaces when you don't see it simply as a spectacle and instead try to make it seem like it's more than that. I said you should keep your expectations low, but how is that humanly possible when the anime was hyped all the way to the moon as soon as its production was announced? And how can you possibly remain calm and reserved about it when it got an average score of 9 out of 10 before it even began to air? I'm not kidding you, it was placed instantly in the top 10 highest rated anime of all times before the first episode was even out. The average dropped since then, but that doesn't equate the power of its delusional fandom. And let me prove why they are delusional, starting with the premise. 7 people get a super warrior each and fight each other because there can only be one. The winner gets a wish and becomes a Puella Magi. What complicates this one line of a story is how the tiniest and most unimportant of events needs to be stretched out to last as much as possible, and a plot that could have ended in 2 episodes if it was pragmatic is instead stretched to last 10 times as much. How is that possible, you may ask? Is the show mostly made up of fillers? No, but it's instead filled with lots and lots of extra fluff that do not allow the average viewer to realize he is watching something that has no progress. It keeps you distracted with constant info dumps. Half of the whole show is people talking and explaining shit. And by explaining, I don't simply mean they explain their strategies to their opponent or comment on everything that happens in the case the viewer has his IQ lower than that of an ape. It does that too, but it's a drop in the ocean before the dreaded info dumping. Dear Lord, they talk for hours about how magic works and what it can do and what are the limitations, and they use fancy words and they explain it again and they go over it every time something new happens, and shut up already! This is what made the source material so famous. It's a porn game with a complicated terminology you can talk about for hours that makes you look smart and not like a ronery who fops to cartoons. And by the end of the day, none of all that matters because it's magic! It makes no sense! Even if it was science that for some reason the porn game managed to present it in a completely realistic manner, it would still not mean anything since it still works in any random way the writer wants it to work. Rin needs to train for a decade, be fully aware of how magic works, and chant for a whole minute for something magical to take place. This is meant to explain why learning magic is a hard thing to do. And then Shiro casts commands, summons super warriors, learns epic spells in seconds, and avoids death rays without having a clue what the fuck is going on, thus debunking the previous claim. They keep saying there are rules that make sense and waste half the show explaining them, only to then reveal caster who has the power of a rule breaker, assassin who doesn't run out of energy without his master around, lancer who feigns death twice in 5 minutes only to die the 3rd time, Gilgamesh who jumps in the death game out of nowhere and screws up everyone with a power nobody had any chance of surviving against besides the blunt MC and his constant ass-pulled power-ups and plot armor, and Archer who stays alive even when he was clearly killed. Adding to all this mess is the very bad writing. If half the show is explanations, the other half is characters fooling around and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm not kidding you, none of the characters take their roles seriously. They are in a death tournament where it is kill or be killed, and treat everything as if it's an amusement park. Rin, who really wants to win in this death tournament, saves the life of another contestant, explains all it needs for him to survive in this war, and then proceeds into trying to kill him, thus rendering all that she did so far to be completely pointless, only to regret it and fall in love with him. Ilya lets her enemies escape because it was a fun game and wants to play more, while Gilgamesh is not killing his enemies because he doesn't want to get dusty. Ilya and Berserker don't have their backdrops revealed until they are 1 minute away from dying. Shinji and Custer's first master don't even have much of a character or a backdrop story and are there only as generic one-dimensional villains for the audience to hate. As if all that weren't enough, there is also a significant amount of characters such as Saber, Ryder, Sakura, even Kotomine, who are not doing much in the whole show, even though they seem to be far more important in their introduction. The reason for that? Because the anime wasn't adapting the root of the game in which they were vital. How do the fanboys excuse all that? In the visual novel, you had options of what you would do, so it doesn't seem that bad over there. I don't give a damn about the boring game, and this is a review about the anime. Oh, there is also, how could we get to know the characters if they would be killed right away, and the show would be over in a few episodes? That's impossible to happen if the show made sense. After all, it's dumb entertainment for shonen darts, so it's okay to whoops, I mean sophisticated storytelling for mature people such as myself. There is nothing wrong with this anime, it's perfect. Okay, you're not convincing me, it's still stupid. There is so much plot armor for the protagonist and so much plot convenience when not killing people, even when they should normally do, to the point I no longer care about the characters because their conflict feels staged. I also can't see this show as dumb action because they keep trying to trick me and fail into believing it is far more than just that. Hey, look guys, it's famous historical figures from the past brought to the present to fight, and they talk about ideals and philosophies. Isn't it amazing? No, it isn't. It falls right into the pretentious territory, a thing which I happen to hate because it wants to make the viewer overthink stuff and trick him to believe he's smart for doing that. The illusion breaks when you get unforgettable quotes such as "people die when they are killed," coming from a guy who cheats death 3 times per episode because he's a blonde shonen protagonist. There are also no consequences in a story where they keep telling you a wish can change the whole world, when the world is otherwise completely autistic to this war and its participants. Yes, they keep saying that they cover it up, but just what is there to cover up when they cause a dozen explosions per episode, injuring or killing hundreds of people, and none in the city sees or hears the slightest thing? It's as if the characters all suffer from chunibyo, and the battles take place only in their childish minds, with the adults walking by, shaking their heads upon seeing them doing all that make-believe nonsense. So down to it, what is the show exactly? It's a silly fighting shonen with very good production values that pretends to be intelligent by overcomplicating everything. It's full of fun catering, wish fulfillment, and escapism, with a naive plot starring a blonde shonen protagonist, full of childish ideals, doing silly teen romance shenanigans with a plethora of female archetypes. Rin is the tsundere, Saber is the kuldere, Sakura is the yandere, and a ton of bravado for the sake of giving importance to things that are otherwise shallow. It's fun if you still like Naruto, but not if you're past the age when you still like teenagers with superpowers and unforgettable quotes such as "the archer class is made of archers." And don't you dare say that just because I am correct doesn't mean I am right. One of the complaints some had about my Fate Stay Night review is that I called it a porn game adaptation when it isn't. It only has a handful of sex scenes in a 60-hour visual novel, so it doesn't count as a porn game. For purposes of clearing this out, I made a topic on Reddit to gather opinions. And by opinions, I mean stupid people writing stupid things, so I can show them to you and make you laugh. So let's go over the most interesting ones. Opinion number 1. The fantards of the franchise are in denial and refuse to admit it, all for the sake of making it seem like it's deep philosophy, or that their waifu is always pure. Opinion number 2. It is an issue regarding semantics. Although there is no distinction in the West, in Japan such games are separated into eroge, which are visual novels with plot that occasionally has erotic scenes, and nukige, which are visual novels that are almost entirely erotic scenes that occasionally have a plot. Meaning, the sex part is a minor element and not a genre. It's not the main focus, but rather something extra thrown in. In fact, even the fans admit that the sex scenes are ridiculous useless and don't fit the tone of the story. They were thrown in simply to increase the sales. The reason they even existed in the first place was because Fate Stay Night came out in 2004, at a time when nobody could imagine a visual novel selling without having sex scenes. Since then, lots of visual novels managed to sell without having erotic scenes, thus it was more of a necessity for the time it came out, and not really something vital for telling the story. But if there is something the fans are being totally douchebags about, that is how they keep saying people label Fate Stay Night as a porn game just so they can make fun of it and excuse why they are not reading it. Hello, didn't we establish that the sex scenes are thrown in there exactly because the game wouldn't sell otherwise? Why are you saying it is an excuse for people to not read it when that is the reason so many played it? Don't use double standards on me, mister. It doesn't work on intellectuals. If we sum up all that is said so far, we reach to these conclusions. Fate Stay Night is an erotic game when it didn't need to be. The erotic content is only making it worse. Omitting those scenes still doesn't change the fact that it originally had them and it wouldn't be as famous if it didn't sell so much thanks to them. In other words, it's popular thanks to shitty filler content. Once again, it is proven that the more popular something is, the less chances it has to deserve any praise it gets. And all that without even addressing all the techno-bubbling nonsense in the story.